Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Hidayah binti Ramli. My matrix number is 1201479. So today I will present about my individual assignment, which is book review. So the book that I reviewed is Mediating with Families by Mike Brandon and Linda Fisher. So in the green one, you can see the citation of this book, which is the author is Mike Brandon and Linda Fisher, published in 2018. The title is Mediating with Families and published by Thomson Reuters Australia. So this is the picture of this book, Mediating with Families. So for introduction, this book covers the field of family mediation in Australia and the fact that this book is only relevant to the Australians. And this book also includes many case studies and examples, so it gives better understanding for the readers. This book also consists of a variety of family relationships, which is same-sex, de facto, and married couple. However, de facto means a relationship which they already live together, whether they are same sex or different sex, they already live together but they aren't married yet. And this book also consists of 16 chapters, which I will explain a little bit about all of these chapters. So in chapter 1, the authors explain about the concept of family, which is a group of elements which are family members who interact with one another. So I believe that this chapter gives better understanding to the readers because it covers the concept of family from both practical and theoretical perspective. In chapter 2, the authors bring us to understand about the approaches to family mediation by using the diamond concept. In this diamond concept, they use explanation, clarification, exploration, negotiation, and agreement. However, I think that not all the family members feel comfortable to discuss their concerns in the systematic way outlined in the diamond, especially in the exploration process where they need to focus on the past. And in chapter 3, about mapping of family relationship, and I believe that the mapping of family relationship is very important because the parties and the mediator can easily see the complexities of the family system, and the parents also can negotiate while keeping the information of their children in their mind. And in chapter 4 about the separation process, for example, the liver will go through frustration and depression, meanwhile the left will experience confusion. I believe that this chapter help them to identify where they are in the range of emotions, and the narrator also can use this process to get insight into how their changing emotional states may affect their partner's ability to move forward. Next, in chapter 5, about child voice in mediation, for example, power of the child and the importance of their voice in making the decision. However, I think if the mediator want to include the child in the mediation process, the mediator should see the child's level of maturity and his ability to express their opinions. Next, in chapter 6 about same-sex couple, which is the authors talk about the qualities in working with same-sex couples such as sensitivity, open-mindedness, and a non-judgmental attitude. However, I think this chapter is not really relevant in Malaysia because we didn't recognize LGBTQ families as it is against Islam. And the mediator in Malaysia also may have misunderstanding about LGBTQ relationships. Next, in chapter 7 about mediating property and financial issues, which is both parties share their earning liabilities and risks. And I believe that this chapter gives better understanding to the readers because the authors also include the example of financial agreement based on the case study. And in chapter 8, about the parent addressing mediation, which is they focus on communication issues for the family as a whole and the children's need. And I believe that having all of the family members in the mediation may assist in reducing parental conflict and empowering the children. Next, in chapter 9, about elder mediation, which is this mediation, they help older people to address their concerns. So I believe that in this chapter really helps the older parents to feel that they have been hurt by their adult children. And in chapter 10 about family and domestic violence, for instance, physical, sexual, emotional, and etc. And in this chapter, we can see that the mediators play an important role in dealing with victims of family violence because they need to keep in their mind that it is not easy for the victims of violence to be open and go through the mediation process. And And in chapter 11 about personal support in mediation, to make the parties feel more comfortable. For instance, however, I think like the personal support person can create difficulties around the confidentiality of the matter, even though they already know the limits of their role. Next, in chapter 12 about co-mediation, because if we have co-mediation, so there is less chance of missing and important issues in the mediation, and co-mediation and mediator also will sharing of tasks. Co-mediator and mediator will share their tasks, and they also will share their role. And I believe that this chapter, which is having co-mediator, might be helpful for the mediator in problem solving, as two heads are better than one. Next, in chapter 13, about the duty of care to the parties, which is the mediator should maintain the confidentiality and not be biased. And actually, from this chapter, I think like being a mediator is not easy, as they are a third neutral party. So they need to observe. They need to observe their manners, such as not be biased and to not giving their own opinions. And in chapter 14 about the mediator's communication skills and technique, which is, for example, listening reflectively, asking questions, and using silence. And I believe that this chapter really shows that a good mediator is the one who has good listening skills, because as a third party, they should understand well about the disputes. Next, in chapter 15 about the interpreters in mediation, which is their role is to translate everything and not to filter the information. I believe that having interpreters in mediation really help those parties who couldn't speak English or aren't fluent in English, as they will help them to translate their thoughts into English. And in chapter 16 about the mediator burnout, which is they will become stressed and they will suffer burnout. So I think the mediators, it is important for the mediators to find an enjoyable way to help them to alleviate the stress, such as walking, going to the gym, and etc. Next, for the conclusion, this book is up to date considering new areas like the voice of the child, family violence, and LGBTQ families. And this book also covers the field of family mediation in Australia and the fact that it is only relevant to Australians. And however, I think to those who want to know the differences between mediation in Australia and Malaysia, they can read this book to gain the knowledge about the mediation in Australia. However, the weakness of this book, I think, is the terminology differences contribute to some difficulties. For example, the word superannuation in this book may be hard to be understood. It means an Australian pension program created by a company to benefit its employees. So, the differences in the terminology is quite difficult to those who read this book for the first time. However, I think the readers can find each meaning and see the context of the sentence so that it is easier to understand. That's all from me. Thank you for listening.